Two trucks, same year, same mileage, same price when they rolled off the lot. One of them is sitting in a salvage yard in Phoenix right now. Engine seized, frame rusted, 87,000 miles on the clock. The other one is in Osaka, Japan. Still running daily, 340,000 miles, original engine, original transmission, same year, same mileage at purchase, different outcome by a factor of 4. That gap isn't luck. It isn't the brand. It isn't the climate or the roads or the fuel quality. It's 3 habits that every mechanic in Japan learns early, habits that American drivers were never taught, and habits that the American automotive industry has very specific reasons to keep off your radar. Hi, I'm Stefan, and this video exists because of a conversation I had 3 years ago with a man named Kenji. Here's what this video is going to do for you. First, I'm going to tell you about my friend Kenji, because without that conversation, I wouldn't have gone looking for the data. And without the data, I wouldn't have understood just how large that gap actually is. Second, I'm going to give you the 3 habits. Not the obvious ones, not oil changes nor tire pressure, the ones that almost never make it into American automotive media, the ones that account for the majority of the mileage difference between a vehicle that reaches 300,000 miles and one that doesn't make it past 150,000. Third, I'm going to explain why these habits are standard practice in Japan, but almost unknown in America, not as a political argument, but as an economic one. Because the answer follows the money more clearly than almost anything else I've found in 15 years of this industry. Stay until the end. The third habit is the best one, and that costs nothing to implement starting today. Kenji and I worked together for about 8 months at a large independent shop outside of Atlanta. He'd trained in Osaka, moved to the US in his late 20s, and spent the first few months quietly doing things slightly differently than the rest of us. The way he let an engine warm before loading it, the way he listened before he diagnosed, the way he talked about maintenance intervals like they were non-negotiable biological functions rather than manufacturer suggestions. One afternoon, I asked him directly, "Where did you learn to work like that?" He thought about it for a second. Then he said something I've thought about almost every day since. In Japan, a car that fails early is the mechanic's shame. Here, it's the mechanic's next job. I laughed. He didn't. The other day, I started pulling data. Japanese vehicle longevity studies from the JAA, the Japan Automobile Association, SAE papers on maintenance interval correlations with engine longevity. Consumer Reports long-term reliability data cross-referenced with owner maintenance habits. And what I found changed how I think about everything I was taught in this industry. The average vehicle in Japan is retired after 13 years, but not because the engine is finished. Japan has a government vehicle inspection system called the Shaken, which makes maintaining an older vehicle administratively expensive after a certain point. So Japanese owners retire mechanically healthy vehicles. On paper, that looks like shorter lifespans. In reality, it's a regulatory ceiling on ownership, not a mechanical one. The proof is in the fleet data. The engines themselves, or in documented case studies from Japanese fleet operators and taxi companies, regularly reach 400,000 to 500,000 miles before requiring internal work. In America, the average vehicle is retired at around 12 years and roughly 150,000 miles, according to IHS Markit automotive data. Not because the engine is finished, because that's the story the market tells, and because nobody ever taught the owners the 3 habits that change that outcome entirely. Habit 1, controlled thermal cycling on every cold start. In Japan, the practice is called warming the engine through movement rather than idling. Here's the distinction. American drivers almost never learn. Like a cold engine idling in your driveway for 5 minutes warms the coolant. It does not warm the oil to a viscosity where it can properly reach upper valve train components, cam lobes, lifters, rocker arms, the components with the tightest tolerances and the least oil film protection during startup. Cold, thick oil takes between 90 seconds and 3 minutes to reach full circulation pressure through a cold engine. During that window, metal contacts, metal with inadequate lubrication at every moving surface. The Japanese practice, start the engine, wait 30 seconds for oil pressure to stabilize, then drive gently under 2,000 revolutions per minute until the temperature gauge reaches normal operating range. Driving warms the engine faster than idling, 40% faster according to Department of Energy data, which means less time in that critical under-lubricated window. And it warms the transmission fluid, the differential fluid, and the wheel bearing grease simultaneously, components that idling never reaches. This habit alone, applied consistently over 100,000 miles, reduces upper valve train wear by a measurable margin in every independent engine tear-down study I've found. Habit 2, listening before diagnosing. This one sounds simple, it isn't. Japanese automotive culture has a concept. It doesn't translate perfectly, but the closest English version is listening to the vehicle's communication. In practice, it means this: before any diagnosis, before any scanner, before any assumption, you drive the vehicle, you listen, you feel. Not for the obvious symptoms, for the subtle ones. The slight hesitation at 2,500 revolutions per minute that only appears on a warm engine. The almost imperceptible vibration at highway speed that disappears when you lift off the throttle, the idle, that's smooth cold but slightly irregular hot. These are the early signals, the ones that cost $30 to address, the ones that, if you ignored them for 6 months, will cost you $1,500. American shop culture works against this habit structurally. Flat rate labor rewards speed. The faster you diagnose and replace, the more jobs you turn in a day, the more you earn. There's no financial incentive in the American service model for the mechanic who spends 20 minutes listening to your car before touching a tool. In Japan, where a vehicle's longevity reflects on the mechanic, that 20 minutes is considered basic professional responsibility. Kenji did this every time. For every vehicle that came through the bay, he was the slowest rider on the team. He had the fewest comebacks of anyone in the shop. Habit 3, treating maintenance intervals as ceilings, not targets. This is the one that surprised me most when I looked at the data. American drivers treat manufacturer maintenance intervals as the recommended schedule. Change oil at 10,000 miles because the manual says 10,000. Replace the transmission fluid at 60,000 because that's the spec. Japanese mechanical culture treats those intervals differently, as the maximum acceptable interval, not the optimal one. The reasoning is straightforward. Manufacturer intervals are calculated for average conditions, average temperature, average load, average trip length, average fuel quality. No driver operates under average conditions consistently. You tow sometimes, you idle in traffic, you live somewhere hot. Your trips are mostly under 10 minutes. Each deviation from average conditions accelerates fluid and component degradation at a rate the published interval doesn't account for. Japanese fleet operators, taxi companies, delivery services, who track vehicle longevity with precision, consistently change oil 20% to 30% earlier than the published interval. Not because the manual's wrong, because they've measured what happens to engines that treat the maximum as the target. They last longer. The data is unambiguous. The American industry has no incentive to communicate this. A vehicle that reaches 300,000 miles on one owner's care represents 15 years of reduced new car sales, reduced financing revenue, reduced extended warranty sales, reduced parts turnover at the dealer level. The Japanese model, where vehicle longevity is a point of cultural and professional pride, was never economically compatible with the American automotive industry's revenue structure. That's not a political statement, it's a financial one. And it's the clearest explanation I've found for why these three habits exist in one culture and are almost entirely absent from the other. Kenji went back to Japan about a year after we worked together. Before he left, I asked him what he thought about American car culture. He said, "You have better cars than you believe you do. You just don't treat them that way." I've thought about that a lot since starting this channel because he was right. The vehicles exist that can reach 300,000, 400,000 miles. The habits that get them there exist too, but they just weren't the habits anyone taught us. If this video just changed how you think about the way you treat your vehicle, hit that like button. Just 1 second. It helps this reach the next driver who thinks their car is old at 150,000 miles. Subscribe and turn on notifications, because next week I'm covering why your dealer recommends 0W20. Every manufacturer in America pushes it, and the data shows it may be costing your engine years of useful life. Next week, the full breakdown. The oil your dealer recommends versus the oil that actually keeps engines alive past 200,000 miles. You don't want to miss that one. I'll see you in the next one.